Hello, and welcome to the Strategic Speaking for Results weekly broadcast. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host. And today, let's think about raisins in a muffin. I love carrot muffins, carrot zucchini muffins, even better. And if they have raisins, better than that. But the other day, a friend of mine had made some muffins, and she hadn't noticed that one of the muffin tins had a whole glob of raisins. So I bit into that muffin and it was delicious. The dough was delicious. But then I had a mouthful that was just raisins, too much. It was like putting too much spice on a dish. If you, instead of just a few sprinkles of pepper, you've got nothing but, and you can't eat it. Or too much of anything is difficult. It's the same when you have too many details in your presentation. Now, stories are great. You really want to illustrate what you're going to do with stories, but make sure that they are concise. So it's just like one or two raisins in that muffin instead of a whole mouthful. I spoke last week about the expert trap, putting too many details into a presentation, too much about how you got there and not why you care. I realized after I did that some people might think that means that you only give the facts. And that's not what I'm saying, because only giving the facts is like a muffin without raisins. It's okay, but it's a little dry, could be a little bit dry. If you can use your stories strategically to illustrate your points, then people will remember you more. People remember stories more than they remember facts. Human beings do. Even if you're a scientist or if you are speaking to scientists, I don't care how data-driven they are, if they are human, they grew up learning about the world through stories. This is what we learn as kids. It's how we learn how to read. So if you give too many stories or too many details, though, the single-focused, task-oriented listeners who are listening to find out what it is they're supposed to do will tune out. Multi-focus listeners will get it, because for multi-focus listeners, the point is the story and the details. What I like to do is use a framework for any presentation. What's my beginning? What's my ending? What are my talking points? Make sure that I can have a concise description of each talking point, everything that the audience needs to know, and then illustrate it with stories. When I work with a client on creating a speech, a keynote speech, we start with just a 5-point outline, and then we fill it in, and then we fill it in, and then we fill more in, so that for each talking point, you have a story ready, but you're only going to tell one of them, depending on how much time you have. Now, if they're interested and they want more information, absolutely, tell another story. Stories are how you can expand a presentation. If they say, hey, the other person isn't here yet, can you talk for 10 more minutes? Tell another story, or 2 or 3. But be sure it's a story that you have practiced. This is also very important in terms of seeding your value with stories. Another complaint that I get often from senior managers is that they have staff members reporting to them who go through their whole resume, who spend a lot of time talking about why they are qualified to give this report. And the truth is, the senior person wouldn't be there listening if they didn't believe that you were good at what you do. They don't necessarily care about your whole resume. However, it's perfectly okay to say, now the thing I'm really good at is adding stories to a dry recitation, a dry speech, so that it becomes more interesting. That took me maybe 20 seconds. If you have a story that you have practiced and you know that it works, you know that you've talked about a problem, you've talked about a solution, and you've talked about the benefit, why we care, then you can use that. Only takes a minute. Have those stories ready, prepare them, practice saying them, and then if you need them, you can drop them into your presentation just as you would drop raisins into the batter of the muffins when you're making muffins. This is a lot of what we talk about in the Visible and Valued Leadership Certification course. If you're curious, reach out to me. I can tell you how to learn more. This has been Strategic Speaking for Results. I'll see you on the next one.